Welcome to Breaking Solo, how solopreneurs break barriers, build brands, and embrace the future of business.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Breaking Solo. I'm very excited to have with me today Tanya Puri. Tanya, thank you for being with me.
Thanks, Donna, for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Excellent. I'm excited as well. Please tell the audience who you are and what you do.
So I am currently the founder of my own consulting company called Pure Insights. But prior to that, I have about 15 years of experience, across finance and strategy and operations. And I really wanted to leverage that experience and go out on my own as an individual consultant and work with smaller companies, earlier stage companies, high growth companies who are sort of in that messy middle of growing really fast, but not quite knowing how to scale their operations to keep up with that. And so I decided to break away from my formal W-2 employment and break out on my own and do this for companies because that's the work I really enjoy doing. And so I've been on this solo journey now for a few months. I'm still pretty early in an early stage, but it's very exciting and I'm really excited to be with you here and talk more about it.
Awesome. That's great. Congratulations for making the break.
Yeah, it's definitely scary, but it feels like the right move for me.
Yeah, it's scary but exciting all at the same time, right?
Exactly. I mean, there's, the leap of really not knowing what comes next every single day, like you do when you have a formal job and someone telling you. But that can also be so exciting because you get to kind of write that for yourself. And that's what's keeping me motivated and so excited about the journey that I get to sort of control my destiny and I get to sort of decide what drives me and the kind of work that I want to do. And so, yeah, it's a healthy mix of scary but exciting. And
Good.
I'm excited to sort of see where this goes.
Yeah, awesome. So, what's been your biggest challenge so far?
I'd say for me specifically, really being able to describe what my expertise is in a clear, sort of easy to understand sense. I've spoken with a lot of consultants who help solo entrepreneurs, and they've all kind of given the advice of be very specific, don't come across as a generalist. And I'm struggling with that because I do offer a few different types of services. So I do strategy work, operations work, and financial work. And so I'm struggling with sort of deciding whether I just go out there with one message, but then, potentially lose out on clients who want that other work as well. Or the harder work of catering your message to every specific person you talk to. Or, potentially being a little bit broader and maybe having people not quite understand in the beginning. To me, that's been a little bit of a struggle to sort of really nail down that branding and that messaging very well in the beginning. Of course, clients I'm working with understand what I do and they're working with me for a reason, but I think it's more that prospecting piece where I'm going out to talk to new clients, where I'm having to sort of be a little bit more mindful of don't sound too broad, don't sound like too much of a generalist, but still hit on all the things that I do.
Yeah, so that is one of the biggest challenges for every business owner, solo or not.
I'm sure. Yeah.
And the key is to not confuse your audience. So
Yeah.
be as clear as possible. Have you read StoryBrand?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so building a story brand, I had to look to see the exact title, is a great book for helping you clarify your message.
Okay, I love that. I'm writing that down, building your story brand. Okay, I'm gonna get that.
By Don Miller. Yes, it's
Okay,
a good book.
perfect. Okay.
So, how did you decide what your niche was going to be when you left corporate America? What drove you to where you are now?
Um, so I kind of leaned on what's the work that I really love doing in my before I left the parts of my job that I loved doing because of course you do a lot of different things in your day to day. Some of it's not as much fun, right? Some of it is the stuff that really gets you going and really excites you. So I wanted to focus on what are those kinds of things that in my day-to-day job before, I broke out on my own, that I genuinely enjoyed doing and really looked forward to doing those kinds of projects. And I said, that's the niche I want to focus on. So for me, it was, like I said, that messy middle of operations of, a company that's making revenue. So they haven't had issue finding product market fit or figuring out if their product makes sense, but they've grown faster than they realized. They started with 3 people, now they're 15, now they're 20, and the systems that they had on day one aren't scaling with them, obviously. And they just are at a point where they now are realizing, okay, everything can't live in the founder's head. Everything can't live in this one folder on my desktop. I gotta have processes, I gotta have tools. And that's the kind of work that I was like, I love doing that. I love helping simplify that for companies, where they feel like they're drowning, but I can come in and help organize and make that really simple and give them the right tools, and show them where their gaps are and get it productionized and ready to go and execute for them. And that's the work that I enjoyed doing, even in corporate America. So for me, it was pretty clear, honestly, when I was breaking out, that I knew sort of what niche I wanted to focus on, sort of being a fractional COO, if you will, or fractional business operations, because that's the work I loved doing in my day job, before I quit. And so, yeah, that wasn't as confusing for me. I felt like I had that figured out.
That's great. And your skill set is something that every owner needs. So good for
Yeah, and
you.
I agree. Sometimes it's hard to convince them, because for so long the founders said, I can do everything. Oh, I can do it on my own. And then when you start, and my experience has been, when I start working with them, they sort of get the point where they're like, yeah, I need help with this as well. Oh, I also need help with this. And that's when they start uncovering the value of working with a fractional like myself. They're like, oh, you can do all of this for me. That makes life so much easier. And so, yeah, I know everyone needs it, but it isn't always that easy to get them to understand it in the beginning.
Yeah, well, that's because we like to hold on to everything. We don't want to
Exactly.
let go of anything and let anybody else
Exactly.
take control. But
Yes.
it is
Yeah.
the most energizing thing, really, to just let go and let somebody else handle
Yes.
it.
Yes, yes. And I've worked with founders like that too, who want to be sort of on every email and in every task and signing off on everything. And, it's a delicate dance of sort of getting them comfortable with delegating and letting me run with things. But I know those founders, I know how they work. And so I know in the beginning I have to be over communicating and sort of really letting them know what I'm doing, so they can then sort of gently feel like, all right, Tanya, maybe, yeah, she knows what she's doing. I can let her run with this.
That's great. And it's great that you actually understand that, because
Yeah.
it doesn't always come easy for people to get it and then to work well with somebody else
Mhm.
that's
Yeah.
in that situation. So tell me, do you see any industry trends that's that you think solopreneurs should be paying attention to right now?
I think so. I think there's a couple that are really interesting. So, one is really the rise of fractional executives. This fractional, like, I feel like I've been hearing it for a couple of years. I've obviously only very recently taken the leap myself into being a fractional executive, but from all the conversations I'm having, I think companies and founders are increasingly comfortable with the idea of a fractional partner, a fractional executive coming in, a consultant, when I think maybe a year, 2 years, 3 years ago, there was a little bit more, they were hesitant to bring on someone fractional. They always thought, I need a full-time person for this. I need a full-time CFO, full-time this. But I think the trend in the market is that fractional support is becoming more and more sort of recognized and encouraged by companies. So that's a fantastic thing for solopreneurs, really, to sort of have more opportunities out there. And I think the second piece is really being aware of all the AI tools. So a lot of founders are coming in saying, can AI do this for me? Do you know if I can use AI for this? Is AI going to solve my problem for me here? And I think being the voice of authority and saying, you can use it for da 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 da, But beyond this, you really got to be the one owning this and understanding this. And it can help these kinds of tasks become easier for you. But I wouldn't feed all your accounts to an AI tool just yet, right? So really helping them understand it, because there's so much going around about AI, and AI can solve everything. And oh my gosh, I don't need a full-time this anymore, and AI just does that for me. And I think it's fantastic for certain things, but educating yourself so you can then educate the clients you work with on it's great for certain tasks, but definitely has limitations right now.
Yeah, that's good. That's good
Yeah.
that you put yourself in a place of being the authority
Yes.
and helping them make the right decisions.
Exactly. I found they're coming to people like me and saying, well, have you heard about this? Can you use that? Doesn't that make your life easier? Can you do this? Like, can you do these things for me because of AI? And I'm sort of having to kind of rein back and say, well, let's talk about it. Are you comfortable with all of this? And a lot of times you're like, oh, I have to give it access to all of this. Maybe not, things like that. So just really helping them walk through the steps of what it means and showing them it can kind of help you in certain cases, but it's not saving me a ton of time for most of my tasks. Some of them, yes, but not all of them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not the magic bullet everybody believes it is.
Not
Although
yet.
I love AI, but it's not a magic bullet.
Same. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so tell me, what's one tool, app, or resource that you have decided in your new journey that you can't live without?
Um, yeah, that's a good question. Um, there's probably a couple or one or two. So I love Calendly because it's a free, you can use it for free, and it lets anybody book a meeting with me, which is fantastic. They don't need to be able to see my calendar. It's a free resource. And for someone who's sort of reaching out to a lot of people a lot of times and trying to, prospect a ton, just being able to send my Calendly link to them and they can click on it and pick a time that works for them. And there's no back and forth email of, what's your availability this week? Like it's so easy. That's a huge tool for me. I don't take that one for granted. It makes life a lot easier. And I think another piece is um, I I'm using I like to sort of I found that I'm a very very verbose, if that's the right word, writer. So I like to write long form content, but obviously no one's reading long pieces anymore. So for me, I actually like to use AI tools to help me distill some of my long form content down. So I'm not having it write anything for me, but I like to go in and say, is this kind of rambly in certain parts, or am I, is it too long in certain areas? What would you recommend I shorten? And then I see suggestions and it helps me kind of edit my pieces down a bit. So like a ChatGPT or a Claude, I like to use those tools for editing some of my long form content. And because I am still so much in that prospecting phase and writing content to position myself as a subject matter expert in certain areas is so important right now, that I do spend a lot of time writing and editing the piece I put on LinkedIn and Substack. So having a tool like that's super helpful.
That's great. That's great. So, do you have, do you have daily habits or routines that help you stay focused and productive? And if so, did you just start that routine when you became a solopreneur, or have you always had those kind of routines?
I've always had routines, but I've definitely had to create new ones now that I'm solo. Because when I was working in corporate, you wake up and your email's either blowing up or your Slack or your messages, and you kind of have a rhythm that's already set up for you, right? You have a task of things that because someone's waiting on a deliverable. So you sort of, and maybe it was bad that I didn't have a certain routine to get into the day, but you sort of had no choice but to dive into it. And I think the solo journey's different because for sure there's deliverables, but there's also like building the pipeline, there's delivering on the current client work, there's like very different boxes of work almost that require very different skill sets. So for me, actually having a better routine was something I found in my early days was just like made a huge difference to my productivity because, in the early days, you're like, do I spend 6 hours on my website? Do I spend 6 hours just writing content? And you can go down these rabbit holes because it's all important work, right? But it's like, it's sort of, if you're not organized, you don't know what your systems are, your schedule is, your routine is, you can kind of be very scattered. And I found that in my early days that I was very scattered. And I think for me, building that new routine really helped get a bit more focused than so obviously sometimes it changes depending on client work, but for the most part, I map out my week and I map it out around client deliverables. And I already have blocks of time blocked for article writing, deep focus time for this. Prospecting has 2 blocks on my calendar, and I move it, like I said, based on client deliverables. But I realized if I don't have it booked on my calendar, I get anxiety about, well, am I spending enough time doing this? But now I know, oh no, I have 6 hours in the week booked to this. It starts on, Wednesday at 9 a.m. or whatever, so that setting that up, those chunks of time and being really thoughtful about it, took a little bit of time in the beginning to like really figure it out, but made a huge difference, like I said, in my productivity because I was spinning my wheels. I was sort of, like spending hours doing something which, like, it wasn't lost work, but maybe wasn't the best use of my time at that moment.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's so easy to do, to just get lost. And that's one of the things I love. I use the calendar tool called Motion.
Okay. Yeah.
So I have tasks scheduled in Motion, and if I don't mark it complete and I put something else on my calendar, it moves it. It doesn't allow me to ignore it. It just moves it in my calendar for the next, next time that's available. So that's
a good one.
yeah, that helps me to stay a little more on top of things.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I know you've just gotten started, but do you have a piece of advice that you'd give someone that is just now starting?
I think so. I think what I'm finding for myself as a bit was sort of a little bit of coming outside my comfort zone. If you've worked in corporate your entire life, which is, my experience, 15 years of just working in corporate America, outside of interviewing for jobs, you haven't really needed to brand yourself or sell yourself, right? Because the work comes to you because you're an employee and you have projects and they have more work than they can handle. But switching to the solo piece means you're going out that much more and you're really putting yourself out there. And to me, that was uncomfortable, really having, even, doing a podcast and talking about myself and my skills. If you haven't done it before, it's uncomfortable, but I think it's so important. And I think being comfortable doing these things that push you outside your comfort zone and practicing that muscle of talking about your experiences and talking about what you're good at and what you've learned. I mean, it's the connections, right, that get you more work and that help you out in the future. So really developing that skill set is what I'd say makes a really big difference, because a lot of people, and women in particular that I've worked with, sort of shy away from saying, oh, I don't want to toot my horn too much and I don't want to sort of brag about, but you have to just view it differently. You're not bragging about yourself, you're not tooting your horn, you're branding yourself, you're telling your potential client how you can help them, and you're the best person to do it for yourself. And so getting comfortable doing that has been a bit of a mindset shift for me. Even writing long form articles on LinkedIn and telling people about the work I'm doing and the things I'm seeing in my fractional experience. I never posted on LinkedIn before, right? Before 3 or 4 months before this. So all of that's a muscle that you just have to get used to. And honestly, the first time is the hardest. The first article you post is going to be the hardest. And after that, you're just turning them out 2 or 3 a week because that's how you're staying in front of people, right? And I think, to me, that's the advice that I'd give someone thinking about it is, one, are you sure you're comfortable doing that? Because it's a big part of the solo journey. And even if you're not, spend some time practicing it, work with people, have them give you feedback on the things you're writing or how you're presenting yourself or pitching to clients, have them give you feedback, someone you love, someone you trust, and then work on it based on that. But really, that's a muscle you're going to be using so much. And so I'd give myself that advice if I could, 4 or 5 months ago, that really get good at it fast, because it's going to make a big difference.
That's great advice. And I would say for the audience, you're the only one that knows how skilled you are. And you have a responsibility to share it with the world.
Yeah.
That's why you were given that skill set, so you can help others.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's
exactly.
Great.
Yeah. I mean, I look back at conversations I had with founders 4 months ago when I just started, and I cringe at those conversations, because I'm like, wait, why didn't I sell? I could have helped that person. So, and I just wasn't able to convert that conversation a bit better because I was holding back. And look back now and I'm like, that wasn't very smart of me, but you learn. And
yeah,
so
that's how we learn. Yeah, exactly.
That's why I want to give that advice to anyone starting out, that, just get comfortable doing that. It's a skill. It feels a little bit hard at first, but just get comfortable doing it, and it's makes a huge difference.
Yeah. So I say one of the things that solopreneurs often have is a fear of looking like they're being salesy.
100%. Oh, yes.
And I would say it's not about looking salesy. It's about, like you said, being sure to let them know how well you can help them.
Yeah.
And make a difference in what they're doing. So
exactly.
Great advice.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any exciting projects or launches coming up that you'd like to share?
So I am working on, like I said, the AI conversation that I'm having with so many founders, I'm working on a bit of a spreadsheet and a tool just to kind of educate both solopreneurs and founders on the AI tools that I have found the most useful. So it's something I'm going to be putting out very soon, if that's useful or helpful to anybody listening or anybody out there, even to you, Donna. Just, things I've dabbled in, because I don't code, I'm not a technical person in that sense. And so my dabbling with AI, I feel like, is what most people are doing when they're dabbling with AI. And I feel like in the solopreneur journey, I've had to sort of dabble with who's going to help me with my website the best, and what's the best tool for this type of thing. And so I've compiled a list of the ones that worked the best for me and were easy to kind of use, and weren't, super expensive or anything like that. And so I feel like that's a great toolkit for both founders and solopreneurs. I'm working on that that I want to put out the next week or two. I'll post it on my LinkedIn and share the link to anybody who wants it. And then other than that, I'm busy with one client right now who needs a lot of help with, like I said, getting their operations figured out and scaled. It's an interesting one because someone I know personally. And so when they hired me, it's obviously I'm very invested in their success.
Right.
More, I would be for any client, but extra invested for them. And it started out with a limited scope, and then it's grown and grown and grown because they realized they need more help, which is both wonderful, but also taking up so much of my time. But I'm grateful for all the work, obviously. But yeah, that's the other thing that's keeping me very busy, is that sort of fractional operations work that I'm doing for them.
Awesome. Okay, tell the audience where they can connect with you and learn more about what you do.
Yeah, so I post on my LinkedIn very frequently every week. So come over to my LinkedIn as Tanya Puri, like Donna said in the beginning, and you can find me there. Or, shoot me an email at tanya@pureinsights.com. And I'm so open to setting up time, a quick 15-30 minutes with anybody, just to sort of, if they want to know what I'm doing, how I could potentially help them. I'm not going to be super salesy. And I'm the first to say, I don't think I can help you with that, because I know my 3 areas of work are strategy, operations, and finance. And if you need a CPA, for example, I can't close your books for you, right? So I'm going to be the first one to tell you that's not what I do. But I can help you with strategy and operations and finance. That's what I have 15 years of experience with. So shoot me an email or hop over to my LinkedIn and DM me or respond to any of my multiple posts about the work that I'm doing. And I'd love to connect with anyone who's listening here who any of this resonated with and feels like maybe I can help them out.
Awesome. It's been a pleasure, Tanya. Thank you so much for joining me today. I have so enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you. I did too. And I've learned so much from you. I'm so grateful.
Thanks so much. Have a great day, everybody. We'll be back soon.